Well, hello, I'm Janet Morana, the Executive Director of Priests for Life. Please know that we're still praying for all of you, and a lot of people are still in quarantine. I know some states you're beginning to open up a little bit, but we're doing the social distancing, all the hand washing, and I hope you're using that hint we gave you weeks ago about we could be saying the Our Father while we're doing that hand washing. So let's use these moments, of trial and tribulation through this COVID-19 experience to increase our prayer life. And speaking of increasing our prayer life, here at endabortion.tv, if you tuned in now, then I'm so glad you did. But just in case you love this show and you say, oh my goodness, I wish so-and-so got to see that today. Well, let me give you our full schedule. We start at 10 a.m. with Father Pavone doing the Mass. And then at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, we have the Divine Mercy Chaplain and the Rosary. And then at 6 p.m., we repeat the Mass. So for people during the day, if you're working from home or homeschooling your children right now with the distance learning, and you couldn't do the Mass at 10, well, you can have Mass at 6. And then at 7 o'clock, we have a Holy Hour. Then I come to what I'm doing for you now gets repeated at 8, followed by at 8:30, the Catholic View for Women. So I hope you're finding all this programming helpful during this time. And you can always, if you have questions, just send us an email at mail@priestsforlife.org, and we could be in touch with you. Well, as I've been telling you, I've been going back into our archives because Father Pavone and I used to do a show called The Gospel of Life. And we did that show for Sky Angel over a decade ago. But some of these interviews are quite good, and they're also evergreen. Well, recently I went back and found an interview we did with Dr. Marie Peters-Ney. And she is an amazing woman. She also works with Dr. Philip Ney, and they developed a beautiful abortion recovery program called Hope Alive. But that's not the reason I had this interview with her. She also worked for Dr. Jerome Lejeune. And of course, we have a lot to say in this program about Dr. Lejeune, and I'll have more to tell you when we come back. So let's take a look at this great show with Dr. Marie Peters-Ney and learn more about the wonderful work of Dr. Jerome Lejeune.
Who was the father of modern genetics? We'll find out from someone who worked with him next on Gospel of Life. Hello, I'm Father Frank Pavone, Director of Gospel of Life Ministries. Welcome to our program. We, as usual, have our Associate Director here, Janet Morana, who co-hosts our shows. And today, we are very honored and privileged to have our friend, Dr. Marie Peters-Ney, joining us. She lives in Victoria, Canada. She has a distinguished medical career, which we're going to talk about, and also had the privilege of working with a very special man whom you'll get to know more about in a few moments. Marie, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Thank you, Jen.
It's great to have you here. Tell us a little bit about your background. You're a pediatrician, and tell us about how that work progressed, and you also did a lot of very important research as well.
I'd be happy to. I'm a pediatrician, as you said, and specialized in hematology oncology. Mm-hmm. And I was at the Hospital for Sick Children in Toronto, which is a very large teaching hospital. And one day we had a couple of leukemias, and 2 of them were children with Down syndrome. And so, as the fellows are usually asked to do, I was asked to look up Down syndrome and leukemia. And I went back 10 years and took all the medical records and noticed that they were very sensitive to one of the drugs that we use in cancer chemotherapy, methotrexate. So I wrote it all up, and nobody was terribly interested, although this was a new finding. And I went on with my career, became a staff medical pediatric hematologist, oncologist in France. And then one day somebody said, you know, that research you did, Professor Lejeune would be very interested in hearing about this. Now, I need to tell you who Professor Lejeune was. Yeah. And he was a French geneticist who you could say was the father of modern genetics, because in the early 1950s, he was the man who discovered that Down syndrome was caused by an extra chromosome. So instead of having 2 chromosomes 21, you have 3 chromosomes 21. And then after that, he went on to describe different chromosomal anomalies and how they made syndromes, you know, and the next one was the 5p minus. Anyway, he sort of brought to the attention of the whole world that some anomalies that run in families that are isolated had a chromosomal basis. And then you know the rest of the story, how now we do gene analysis. So people said, oh, it's on the chromosomes. And people went back then to the DNA and found genes. But he's really the one that opened the door to this kind of research that we are doing today.
When was it that he made that discovery?
I forget, but it was in the early 1950s.
Earlier 50s, okay.
Yeah, 1950s. Yeah. And then he went on to describe a whole series of chromosomal anomalies. Anyway, he was a very committed pro-life Christian doctor, and he felt that if we knew the anomaly, we could maybe try and cure the person with this genetic anomaly. This was his dream and his vision. So I sent him the paper I had written, and he was very excited by this finding, because it had been for a long time a theory of his that children with Down syndrome need more folic acid, that somehow there's some anomaly in their metabolism. And my clinical findings indicated that this working hypothesis was correct.
So in other words, what we're saying is that there's a genetic problem, but it's more than pure genetics. You're saying it has to do with biochemistry and
Yeah. Well, on the chromosomes and on the genes, it's like a factory, and these are all the commands saying make more of this, make more of that, don't do this. and so when there's an anomaly, it just creates havoc in the factory. Okay. So anyway, I went to see him with the paper, and I'll always remember that first encounter, because I saw he was alone. It was after work hours, and he was alone in the laboratory. A very, very serious, intelligent, but humble man. And so we talked a little bit about the research, and then he looks at me and he says, "It's your duty as a Christian physician to come and work with me." And
wow.
I had a little snicker, and I said, "Why? Do we have to do more outpatient clinics?" And he said, "No, we have to cure them."
Beautiful.
And then I really had a snicker, and he looked at me very seriously, and he said, "Well, we put people on the moon, don't we?" And that kind of, yes, maybe you're right. Maybe there is a hope. Maybe there is something to be done. And then he went on, and this really stuck with me. He said, if we don't do anything, in 30 years, there will be no more children with Down syndrome. And he went on to say they will all be killed. And so this we're talking about now 25 years, and it's true. Now,
yes, it's coming true. Yeah,
it's true.
We've talked on this program about the studies that show, what is it, somewhere in the range of 85–90% of the Down syndrome babies diagnosed in utero are then aborted. It's just horrendous. So so he was impressed with your research findings, invited you to work with him.
Yes.
And were these the same findings? I know you received the prestigious award in Paris at one point. Was this connected with the same research?
It was connected because we went on to develop a whole sort of research protocol. And I think it would probably be boring people to get into complicated biochemistry. But we developed a panel of metabolites, antimetabolites, different substances we would put in the test tube and see what the reactions were. And some things were beneficial, some things were extremely more toxic for people with certain entities. Anyway, it was kind of a profile. They do that now. You know, they'll do your metabolic profile and see what vitamins you should be taking. And this was kind of something we started 25 years ago to analyze how different anomalies have different faulty pathways, metabolic pathways. And then we say, okay, if this is not working, then we'll give you some extra vitamin, whatever, you know, this. And for that research, I was given the Breton Gallet Academy of Medicine Prize, which is the highest prize they give for research.
Wow. Well,
but,
congratulations on that. That's great.
But he was such an intelligent and humble man, and so driven by this this wanting to protect people with disabilities.
Yes.
That he knew would be eliminated because they weren't like everybody else. Mm-hmm. And also because he was intelligent and simple. He taught me how all the medical scientific evidence is there that life begins at conception. Mm-hmm. Not just life, not just any life, but my life, my whole program, my whole genetic program, everything that I will ever need in life is given to me right at the time of conception.
There at that time.
Yeah.
I want to talk a little bit more about that in detail after our break and the contributions Dr. Lejeune made to that very specific point right there. So friends, stay with us as we continue our conversation with Dr. Marie Peters-Ney. We will be right back.
There's nothing wrong with your television set. You don't see anything because there's nothing there. Abortion, the most common surgery in America. Why don't we ever see what it looks like? A message from Priests for Life.
Happy birthday to you.
The decision to have an abortion not only affects that moment in your life,
Kristen Gordon.
it affects many precious moments to come.
I now pronounce you man and wife.
Please remember, where there's life, there's hope. A message from Priests for Life.
Well, welcome back. We're talking with Dr. Marie Peters-Ney, a pediatrician and a prestigious researcher, worked with Dr. Jerome Lejeune, the father of modern genetics. And, Janet and Marie, one of the impressive things about Dr. Lejeune is that he was so capable, obviously, to penetrate the deepest genetic reality of the human person, and yet did not fall into the temptation of thinking that human beings are just a collection of genes, chromosomes, and tissues. He had a vision, a view of the human person informed by his Christian faith, and he defended that vigorously, as you're describing.
Right. And, I find so interesting is that when we talk about the abortion issue, we always get accused of bringing that it's a religious issue, And we have these discussions here. We're proving to everybody this is not a religious issue. It's scientific. Dr. Lejeune's work is so obvious,
Well, true religion pays attention to science,
right?
And does not contradict it because it all comes from the same God. And Dr. Lejeune really knew that, didn't he?
Yeah.
And and amazing too about the discovery of the chromosomes. His whole point of discovering that was not just to say, okay, this is how we know when there's a Down syndrome child here. He was trying to cure Down syndrome and these other things. And now what science is doing is using their knowledge on a search and destroy mission. We were just saying that. There are so many Down syndrome children and other diseases that those children don't see the light of day. They're aborted. I mean, the medical profession has flipped this around.
Yeah.
It's sad to say.
Yeah. Dr. Lejeune, we were saying before the break, was very clear. In fact, I have a quote from him here about conception. He says, "To accept the fact that after fertilization has taken place, a new human being has come into being is no longer a matter of taste or opinion. It is plain experimental evidence." And I know that he testified to that effect in some of the United States cases that came up, particularly in Tennessee. There was a case of the frozen embryos, and this couple had gotten divorced, and they were arguing, well, is this frozen embryo a child or a piece of property? And he testified. In fact, I think his testimony led the judge to say this is a child.
Yeah. Yes. He was very good to testify, and in a way, the evidence is there, and it's very simple. And you sometimes wonder why there's this big smoke screen, and that people don't realize how simple it is. And if it were not a human being, you wouldn't do in vitro fertilization. And if it were not very unique right from the moment of a conception, all this pre-implantation diagnosis would be useless. So you have the evidence on the, I'd say, the counter evidence, but it's all there. The evidence is all there right from the moment of conception. It's a human being, and this human being is unique. And if this human being is unique, this human being will never be replaced. It will never come back later, the same child. No, it will be somebody else.
You know what I've noticed in my own reading of genetics, that haven't we discovered more and more how highly specialized the tiny human being is from the very beginning? And it's not just that there's the raw material there, as if it's some kind of unformed mass. It's sure, it develops and specializes more as time goes on, but it's very, very highly specialized right from the beginning.
Right from the beginning. So all the information is there, and then people say, as you say, it's just sort of a program. But for example, the first division, there's 2 cells that divide, and then one cell will be faster than the other, so you have a 3-cell stage, which means that already one cell knows I have to divide faster than the other one. So highly specialized, highly organized, and fascinating and beautiful.
It's like I often, when I'm describing this to high school students, I'll say, well, when was it decided? When was it determined that you would be male rather than female, or vice versa? When was that determined? It wasn't determined at 8 weeks in the womb or 12 weeks. You know, it was determined at that first instant of fertilization, wasn't it?
It's very impressive. The other thing I just kind of like to add, while I was working with Professor Lejeune, I lived in a group home by also a Christian man, Jean Vanier, and I discovered the uniqueness of the handicapped person, and how we're all important in this world. Everybody with a different mission in life, a different function, but the person with a disability has a unique role in our society. And in terms of teaching me about myself, teaching us to be compassionate, teaching us about friendship, real friendship, teaching us what are the important things in life. And I think it would be a very sad world if there were no people with any disabilities left. It would be a world that would be missing a very important component to our.
Well, I mean, it's pretty frightening, really, what is going on right now, because it's almost exactly what the Nazis were doing. You know, wanting this perfect race, and that's what we're really doing. I mean, we don't want to face that, and, you know, the media won't talk about that. But with all this amniocentesis and like search and destroy missions where, you know, I say bravo to the women out there who, when they're pregnant and the doctor says to them, we want to do an amnio, they say absolutely not. No. Keep saying absolutely not, because you're by accepting the fact of the amnio, unless it's to do surgery on the unborn child, I wouldn't accept that, because what they're trying to do is to say, okay, we did this amnio, here's all the problems with your baby, and now we want to have an, I mean, it's almost like the next breath that comes out of that physician, and now we want to kill that child. And so what they're doing is, doctors who participate down that road are no better than the Nazi Germany philosophy.
Well, we're out of time. Marie, I want to thank you for being with us again and sharing your experiences and insights about Dr. Lejeune. And God bless you for your work as well. Thank you, friends, for being with us.
One of the most important things we can do in the pro-life movement is to pray. And one of the most popular pro-life prayer books is In the Palm of His Hand, written by Father Frank Pavone, National Director of Priests for Life. The revised version of this popular prayer book contains prayers and litanies that Father Frank has written to correspond to various liturgical seasons and feasts. You will also find pro-life reflections, a pro-life litany, pro-life prayers for Eucharistic adoration, and for prayer vigils at abortion mills, and much, much more. These devotional tools are great for personal, family, and parish use. Order it on our online store at prolifeproducts.org or call us at 321-500-1000. Again, order In the Palm of His Hand at prolifeproducts.org or give us a call at 321-500-1000. Thank you. You know, the work of Dr. Jerome Lejeune was so important. And isn't it sad that his hope of that work was to find a cure for Down syndrome? And what has the culture of death done? They took his discovery of that gene to do a search and destroy mission, because most of these children are now aborted. What a terrible thing. And you know, in these other programs, I have interviewed so many families over time here on both endabortion.tv and our Defending Life programs and Gospel Life programs, people who are raising children with Down syndrome, and what a joy those children bring to those families. So we need to spread the work of Dr. Jerome Lejeune, and know that just recently, actually during this month of May, his wife, Bertha Lejeune, passed away at the age of 92. And also Dr. Jerome Lejeune, you know, he was commissioned actually by St. John Paul II to begin and start what was called the Academy for Life, which brought together scientists from all over the world to help combat the culture of death and to get the scientists more on the path for the culture of life. So spread the work of Dr. Jerome Lejeune and also of Dr. Marie Peters-Ney. Well, here at Priests for Life, we have a great team. And of course, none of us are traveling right now, but we're looking forward real soon. And I think as things open up, I think we'll be scheduling parish weekends again. And of course, I want to be able to come out and speak to your schools, your banquets. I know Kevin and Teresa Burke want to be out there on the road again, Dr. Alvita King. And so I was looking in our archives, and I found a great collage of pictures of kind of showing the excitement that we create when we're on the road. And so we're missing, our wings have been clipped. Do you know, for me, it's like amazing. I have not been on a plane since March the 9th. Now, for Janet Marana, that's like insane. Over 2 months, no flying. But I want to be out there visiting all of you real soon. And if you really would like to schedule one of us to travel, to come to your community, just send us an email at travels@priestsforlife.org and just ask, what are the first steps I need to know? And my Speakers Bureau will be happy to be in touch with you. So let's take a look at this picture collage that I think will inspire you to say, hey, Janet, Father Frank, come and visit us. Okay, thanks and God bless.